Good morning, everyone. We're going to review the classwork that was assigned on March 17th. I tried to do this in another video, but we're going to try YouTube now. So anyway, this is in your workbook, and it's on page 31, and we're going to do Part B. Now, Part B gives you a chart, but I think it's much easier to understand if we do it with a graph first. So you're given f of x, which is our red graph. Can everyone see that? And we're told that we're going to have a transformation to g of x, which is f of x minus 3. You should remember that k shows us transformations vertically sliding them up or down. So a negative 3 corresponds to a vertical shift down of 3 units. So what I'd like you to do is put your pencil or pen on each dot, and we're going to count down 1, 2, 3 units, and we're going to put a new dot. We're going to put our pencil on this one. We're going to go down 1, 2, 3 units, put a dot, and so forth for all of these. Go down 3, go down 3. If you connect those dots, what you've now created is our graph of g of x. Also, what I've done is to show you to fill out the chart. It might be easier, and I would prefer if you could please label each of these coordinates, and you can see I have those in red. So this one is negative 1, negative 2. The next dot is positive 1, positive 2. 3 corresponds to negative 2, and 5 goes to 2. Now, since we did a vertical translation, notice the x's do not change at all. The x negative 1 stays negative 1, 1 stays 1, 3 stays 3, 5 stays 5. What changes is the y coordinate. We go from negative 2, we dropped down 3, and we wind up at negative 5. We started at 2, we dropped down 3 boxes, and we're at negative 1, and so forth. Negative 2 goes to negative 5, and lastly over here, 2 subtract 3 or drop down 3 gives me negative 1. Again, this is the solution to B graphically. Now what I'm going to do is give you what needs to be done inside your workbook page itself. So again, this is Part B. First, I'd like to point out that there is a typographical error in your workbook. Right here, they have negative 1, 1, 1. Again, that's a typo in the workbook, not me, that's HMH. Please change that to a 3. F of x is the same as y, and those coordinates are given. They want g of x, which is f of x minus 3, dropping down 3 units, and so algebraically, I've shown you by adding minus 2, minus 3 more is negative 5. So these boxes are what needs to be filled in your workbook. If you would please add the final coordinates for g of x on the outside of the chart. I realize there's no spot for that. Okay, again, this is Part B on page 31 in your HMH workbook. If you want to see what it actually looks like, it looks like this. Okay, so that is Part B. I will go back. I already had recorded the Part A, which is the do now, but I have to re-record it because it did not save. Okay, let's move on to C. So C is a mapping and a graph, and there's some questions after it. I do want to point out that the questions after it where it says to compare them, letter D is in fact the quiz. So where it asks you what would you expect for the graph to look like, I do need you to do that, and that is counting as a separate quiz grade. Okay, so let's go back up here, and I'm going to do C. Again, I find it that we're mostly visual people, and so I find it advantageous to look at the graph first. Sorry. Stay. Okay, good. All right, so now we're on Part C. And you're given f of x, and they want you to do g of x. And now this time I want you to notice we're not impacting the k parameter. We're now going to look at the h. So g of x is going to be f of x minus h. And what is h? H is, in fact, positive 2. So we're given that information. So start off with your f of x, which you'll notice I've sketched in here for you as the blue graph. And so what they're asking us to do is to take h and make it 2. Well, h, if you recall, is horizontal. So if I start here and I'm going to shift to the right 2 units, that's my new block, my new dot. And up here, if I shift to the right 2 units, that's my new dot on g of x. And down here, shift right 2, up here, shift to the right 2. So what I'd like you to do is take a look, and I have labeled all of the new coordinates for g of x for you. The first one here is when x is 1, y is going to be negative 2. When x is positive 3, y will be positive 2. 5 will correspond to negative 2. And lastly, 7 will correspond to 2. And that's our new transformed graph. What I also want you to take note of is my little mnemonic is in the house, horizontal, the opposite of what you think. Now, h is 2. But remember, the formula has a minus in it. So when you look at it, if this was, say, a quadratic or an exponential function, you would see minus 2 here. And we would have to know that that means to move to the right 2. That is the same for exponential functions, quadratic functions, logarithmic functions, radical functions. They all have that same parent function switching to the transformation. Again, this is exactly out of your book. And what they want for the quiz question is just remember, if h is positive, we move right, but there's a negative in the formula. So if my h is negative, right, instead of moving to the right, we would move to the left. I know it's a little confusing, but again, the h is this number, not that negative, this number. And so if h is positive, a negative times a positive, it's going to look negative, but you're moving to the right. Hopefully that's helped. Please stay with me. I am going to record A for you, which is the do now, and then a little bit later on, I will be posting 318's classwork, which will be yesterday's, and then tomorrow I will make available to you today's classwork. A little bit each day will get you through this and with a good grade. Also, please notice on Google Classroom at the very top, it has a video tutorial. It's literally 1 minute long on how to upload your work into Google Classroom by taking a picture on your phone. There's a few steps, and again, I know we're visual, so if you could please watch that video and please submit to me at least 317's work today. Again, I'll have another video up with yesterday's do now. Thanks, guys. Keep working. I also sent out a WhatsApp connection code, so you can try contacting me that way also if you need any extra help. Keep it up. Bye.